Mateo. Thank you, Sharon. Hi, Jackie. Teresa, Lenny. Hi, Delia. Okay, so not really going to go onto the onto what we've already spoken about what we did today, but I think hi, Lee J. But I think what is important to note is that another woman got killed today on a farm. Evidently, the barbarians that killed her and seriously assaulted her mom, their worker, their garden worker on the farm, or whatever he does on the farm, was implicated, and he was arrested. Then they took the car and they rolled the car, and one was seriously injured, taken to hospital by ambulance, and then they arrested the hi, Jackie, and then they arrested the other dude, which is frightening. Now I just want to get back to the point I was making. Carl, just come put this right here, please. Just come put this right here, please.
Yeah.
Just to get the I'm just trying to get the feed here, Graham. I'm not getting it with the people's comments. Okay. That's mine, eh?
Is it yours?
Yeah.
Good evening, people.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, thank you, Graham.
Okay.
Hi, Lundy. Thanks, Graham. Yeah, so this lady gets killed. Her mother gets beaten half to a pulp. And life will go on tomorrow. You know, it won't be a topic. What I can't understand is that, hi, Liga, is that many people, not many, let's change that, hi, Renette, is that quite a few people have been arrested for farm murders. Why have we never been told where they're from? We've heard one or two are from Zimbabwe. What's their agenda? Who they're following to do this? What are they? A lot of the farm murders take place and there's no weapons, no money, no nothing like that stolen. So obviously there must be some kind of a... Hi, Veronica, Alida. I think it's a shocking. This should be the one that broke the camel's back. But unfortunately, it's not going to be. Besides having a very weak police service and a police leader, in the police operations, we should have... The first statement comes from the commissioner of that town, of that province. He gives the first statement. Then the second statement is given by the National Police Commissioner. Then only right at the end does the minister come into play. Now, quite right, Mateo. And then, like what happens in what Becky Chelly's been doing it, the politicians are political people. So the police are the police people, but we don't see the deputy or the police commissioner of South Africa. The National Police Commissioner is missing in action, and he should correspond. But Becky Chelly will go to certain murder scenes and be... What is he doing there? For political gain? To show the people that he cares? Then why have a National Police Commissioner? We don't need a National Police Commissioner. In actual fact, we don't need a Divisional Police Commissioner. Because if Becky Chelly is doing all the talking, why are they hiding the National Commissioner? It's very disturbing. And I think that, you know, we're going to talk about this and God willing not, but we're going to talk about this next week again, or maybe tomorrow night we're going to talk about it. As far as from my side on the we met some people this evening. We had good open frank discussions with them. is my meeting with, or the proposed meeting that I proposed to meet Julius Malema. Now, that was in an effort to try and stem his tirade of hate against white people, even though he gets money from white people. But he seems to hate us. He's a socialist communist, but he's a capitalist when it suits him. Now, when you go to Parliament, you're a servant of the people before you are a servant of your party. You represent your party, and you represent Parliament, and you represent the people. Now, by this coward not wanting to meet me, and like I said, I'm not in Parliament, so I'm a member of the public, I'm a taxpaying member of the public. The common decency would have been to send me a message via Facebook or social media, write me a letter, whatever what he wants to do. But he chose not to. So he's in breach of parliamentary rules. Because parliamentary has got a handbook where it comes to dealing with the public. And a lot of our politicians only want to be seen on TV, and they only want to be seen when they know that the publicity will be high. They're not actually interested in you and I. I've seen many parliamentarians. I go to Parliament when it was still operational very often. And once they've finished shouting and screaming at each other, they're laughing and joking in the restaurant in Parliament. I don't know if there's a pub anymore in Parliament, but there used to be a pub where they all used to get together and have a big piss-up after they put on a parade for the public on Parliamentary Live. I don't really think that him being such a coward and not wanting to meet me, or probably if anyone else wants to meet, it would be like bring $1 million or 2 with and then you can meet me, shows that he's not interested in reconciliation of this nation. If he just had to take his little mouth and just said, let's leave the violence for a while until we get an Indaba going around the table, and it would still be, it would change some parts of South Africa. But it's very sad tonight to hear of that lady's passing, and her daughter that is probably fighting for a life as we talk. And I think we've become desensitized. Now, if we look at Hillbrow this morning, that's a shithole of note. There's more Nigerians there than there are in Lagos. And they've completely taken over, and the police are not, I don't think the police are capable of doing anything to get the situation changed. The buildings are dilapidated. We went right through Hillbrow, right through Johannesburg Central, and hi Debbie, Matteo, Richie. Yeah, that's right, Richie's interested in the Kroon. So, yeah, any part, you're right there, Derek, any part of reconciliation would be the end of Julius Malema. And that was my attempt to meet him and ask him in a nice way, and speak to him from a humanitarian level, not from a political level. Even though he will come with these, we want our land, but what do they want the land for? Because every piece of land that been given, they've stuffed up. Let's grab a chair here, Carl. And it's gone off again. And so South Africans, I think South Africans, we have to take note that the fact has come that there is no reconciliation. The farm murders will continue. You can get a chair here, Carl. The farm murders will continue. The slaughter of our people will continue, and I think we have to get to the main facts here. This is total hate crimes against the people, and it's a full-blown attack. And I don't think I've said this before to you, friends. It's a full-blown attack that can be termed white genocide. I'm not talking now about my black friends or Indian friends or colored friends or Chinese friends or Bangladeshi friends. You know, we actually the United Nations in South Africa, but you just walk in. But try to get a visa for yourself or try to get a visa for your child coming from overseas. It's like trying to remove Buckingham Palace from London or from England. So it's disturbing. You know, this whole trip has been one of enlightening ourselves. We've got photographs of things that we. Hello, Glennis, Teresa, hi, Beverly, Saul's this. Yes, it's heartbreaking. It is absolutely shocking. Now, Julius Malema evidently reads our stuff and he retweets our stuff. Now, who? Sorry for my language. Does the fuck he think he is? He's a small little dick syndrome who cannot face a 56-year-old white man in Sandton over a cup of coffee to discuss the future of our nation. And unfortunately, our opposition political parties are doing nothing. In the reign and rule of Mmusi Maimane, they did not really go into farm murders or commit themselves that they were farm murders. And that's what obviously drove the white vote away from the DA. That's why they did so badly in the general election. And that's why Mmusi Maimane was kicked into touch by none other than Helen Zille. John Steenhuisen was second in charge with Mmusi Maimane. He was the chief whip of Parliament. So they didn't make big noise about anything. In the beginning of COVID, we heard John Steenhuisen, the interim leader who's now campaigning like he thinks he's Donald Trump, and I like John Steenhuisen. I think he's a good leader. But when you're leading for the minority, you have to say exactly the way it is. You can't come with the word alleged. You have to call a spade a spade. So in Parliament, John Steenhuisen, of the chief whip of the Democratic Alliance, and now running for the full-time leader of the Democratic Alliance, has to weigh heavily because the support of his has to come from black and white people in Parliament. So there was an attempt by John Steenhuisen in the beginning of the Chinese virus to keep people updated. He interviewed some Lenny, I don't know if the United Nations will step in, because I don't think they should step in, because I don't think they know how to step in. Can you remember when our troops went into Africa? They were all charged with murder, rape, etc., etc., etc. Hello, Dapper Mace. Hello, Tarika. Sorry, just going through this quickly. Mateo, Veronica. So I want to carry on with John Steenhuisen and the Democratic Alliance. When the last election was held, when Mmusi Maimane tried to attract the black vote, a lot of people left the DA, and it was almost, people thought it was the demise of the DA. But yet, they did very badly in the general election, and Mmusi Maimane was then pulled, like on his puppet strings, he was pulled, and they realized, the DA, that they have to go back to the white and colored vote. That is why they're now going to have a white leader in John Steenhuisen, and they're going to change their tactic, and they're going to start screaming about the farm murders 4, 5, 6 years too late. When last have you heard from the Premier of the Western Cape? When there were those earthquakes, when last did we get a statement out of him? He's had COVID twice. He's like a walking miracle. Living in the luxury of Leeuwenhof. But when have we heard from him? When has he spoken to the people of the Western Cape? Carl's not falling asleep. His eyes are just a bit doff. Carl, you look simple. Are you simple, bro?
I think I might be, sir.
Okay. So, in the political realm, we can't expect the DA or the ANC, we can just write it off, you know what I mean? You can't expect the DA or the Freedom Front, who garnered the more votes because they got the white vote in the last general election. Not all of the white vote, but they got a lot of the white vote. So that's why they got so many seats in the House of Assembly. So the same tactic that the Freedom Front used, now the DA are going to use and shout about things about which they couldn't shout about in the last election because Musi Mamani was leader. So, yeah, there isn't a political party that at the moment I will support. I really enjoy the company of Terry Lakota from Cope. He's a friend of mine. But as for the rest, some are friends of mine, some like I don't like at all, and they probably don't like me, but that's not my problem. But they get paid a hell of a salary to serve our people, and they're not serving our people. What is now going to happen next when the local elections come and municipalities are taken over? But the question remains, why, if the DA, Carl, make coffee there, you look like you're falling asleep to my eyes, man. You're a young man, I'm 56 years old. I can have a cool Angie. You know, they don't make men like they used to, Angus.
They don't, Mr.
They don't, huh? You're dealing with people who are falling with their eyes closing here. Yeah, Dapper Mesa, I agree with you. The DA are ANC light. Because it all has to go according to political correctness. Now we've got one leader, I believe, besides Terry Lakota, Piet Groenewald from the Freedom Front says it like it is, and I've got a lot of respect for him. But how can you go into coalitions in various municipalities with the EFF? And they said they were going to withdraw, so I don't know if they have withdrawn. The DA went into coalitions with the EFF to garner certain votes so that they could have a mayor. Hi, Daniel. Okay, Daniel wants to know, is cocaine expensive?
Cocaine is extremely expensive, sir.
Okay.
Roughly 1.5 million over 3 months, sponsored by Bucky Buddy.
Thanks, Richie. So, where do you put your double standards? If you're fighting and hating the EFF, but when it comes to forming a coalition government in municipal areas to get your person in as mayor or speaker, you form an alliance with the opposition. Don't tell me about keeping my friends close and my enemies closer. Because they grandstand in parliament. That's all they do. Because the big thing when Jacob Zuma openly stole the money to build in Kandla, the DA were up on their feet and so were the EFF up on their feet, pay back the money. Now that the COVID trillions have been stolen, where's the same chance of pay back the money? Where are the statements of the people who are meant to govern this country? This country is not only lawless, it's governless. We do not have leaders in this country. We don't have people who lead parties and represent parties, because I'll tell you how the DA works. The DA works in such a way that if you sit in the caucus with the DA and they make the decision that this is going to be the way, if you don't abide by those rules, you are suspended. You do not have your own mouthpiece. So you got 20 people sitting in Parliament representing the DA, but they don't have their own mouthpiece. Even if they disagree vehemently to something that is going to be enacted by the DA. And that goes for the ANC as well. So why have all those people then? What are they doing there? We are the parliamentarians who are meant to go and visit their districts. Every parliamentarian gets an area. Like say someone will get Beaufort West, the other one will get Somerset West, the other one will get Fishhook area, Simonstown, and Mpumalanga. And they're meant to go and visit their parliamentary offices in those areas. And they're meant to go out to the people. Well, I haven't seen one come to my door. There's no politicians to trust. It's all about money and jobs. Because if you're fighting for the leadership of a party, you don't have to go out and lobby, because surely the people will know what your credentials are. So why go out and lobby? It doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, that's true, Dapper. I'm glad you wrote that letter to Steenhuisen. We don't have an official opposition that has got the balls and the guts to take on the African National Congress. Because they are so bloody politically correct. They are so frightened. They are so scared. Even though they've got immunity, diplomatic immunity in Parliament. Whatever they say in Parliament cannot be used against them outside. If they walk outside the door and say the same thing, then they can be held for civil action in any high court, but not in Parliament. They are weak. Okay, Beverly's online from Mexico. Okay, she's going to make a tunnel for all of us from here to Mexico. Thank you, Beverly. We're still waiting for that cocaine shipment. Yeah, you know, our country went from 1994, when everyone was singing the joys of Nelson Mandela, as a terrorist. That's what he was. He was a terrorist. May have turned out to be a wonderful leader, but his initial claim to fame was terrorist. Let's not forget that. Nice man, came out, you know, kissed everyone, healed the world. He should have sang the song with Michael Jackson. I don't know if Michael Jackson was white by then, but anyway. Went around and healed the world, but had no clue, like Cyril Ramaphosa, like Thabo Mbeki, like Kami Motlanthe, had no clue how to govern. It's easy to be a liberation struggle and a fighter, but to govern is a completely different thing. So by our travels in this country, it's not even dilapidated, my friends. You know, you see the odd thing on TV, I thought, you know, it wasn't as bad. You saw it on TV, it wasn't as bad. Well, it's a shithole, let me tell you. So when we go to Israel and then to Washington, we can show this is what's happening to our country. We can show the people, the amount of people, the names of people, the photographs of people that have been murdered on their farms. Even the people, the husbands and wives and children who are murdered in their homes. We're having more deaths per day as some countries have that are at war. Hi, Bernice. So all these opposition parties mustn't come as prissy pussies to us, man. And that's not a swear word. Because they get paid from our tax money. Parliament pays them. They get a salary. They even get parking for free. They get about, I think, 48 flights per 6 months or per year, or 90 flights free. Every member of Parliament. And what do they do for us? What do our parliamentary people do for us? When do you want... When does the Premier come out of Leeuwenhof? I know Leeuwenhof is a nice place because everyone vies to get there. But when does he come out and address the Western Cape? Gets to a point where a person starts realizing we're on our own. And you get to a position more when you realize that only God can heal our nation. And that's another topic as well. Where are the leaders of the church? Where is Ray McCauley, who always had his mouth for everything? I know he had 12.5 million rand divorce settlement, but I'll leave that. He obviously made a lot of money from tithes. Ray McCauley, you don't hear from him anymore. You know why? Because 98% of his church is black. Raymond Church, that's why. So we must like catch a wake up, people. All of us, me, you, everyone included, must catch a wake up. Because they're in there for their salaries, for their luxuries, and now and then they'll make a statement, and then they will jump up and down in Parliament and think they are Keith Richards on steroids. Now, if you can imagine Keith Richards on steroids, then you can imagine what it looks like in Parliament. Richard Ferreira, who came through our farm, says, he heard today that the Coburg Eskom, that's that Coburg, okay, let's not even go there. Eskom bought 5 steam generators from Germany worth trillions, millions, only to find out that their blueprints were 25 centimeters off. You remember when they bought the trains and they realized it doesn't fit on the tracks? We're dealing with incompetency, stupidness. Yeah, Siska, there will be a Buddha leader, but and I hope he comes soon. Because let's be quite honest, a lot of things that Eugene de Blanc said has come to pass. But a lot of things, but you can't have radicalness like that. You need to have a strategy, and you need to have all the people involved who want to be involved. Yes, Dr. Mace, I agree fully with you. Yeah, Cyril Ramaphosa has hit the road. I think he may have gone with his private jet to Beverly in Mexico to pick up a stash of cocaine so there can be another march against him while he's snorting himself. If God doesn't step in, and those of us who've got faith, and what we are doing at the moment is all by faith. You know, it's not by our own. We just like go in the morning by the Spirit. Besides people we have to see, we go in the morning and in the evening. But the rest of the time, it's going by faith. We will end up, people say we're going to end up like Zimbabwe. I think we'll end up worse. Quite right there, Jackie. We need someone who's uncorruptible. Someone, my dad used to say, Anthony, everyone's got a price, my boy. Make sure you don't have a price. Love him or loathe him, Donald Trump doesn't take shit. But how many more statistics, how many more families are going to be broken? When I was at the Constitutional Court today with the 3 guys, and Graham stayed in the car, on the steps of the Constitutional Court, a man was smoking a crack pipe. That's like almost indicative of where our nation is today. We've got a very drugged youth, badly drugged youth, after that Constitutional Court decision to legalize dacha, marijuana, whatever you want to call it, because now they're turning a blind eye, because you think the cops, if guys walking with a crack pipe, maybe or maybe doesn't know what he's smoking. So it's a very sad end to a day when you hear about the murder of that lady and the beating to pulp of her mother. This is the second time murder in 2 weeks that one of the perpetrators of the murder, allegedly, the one has appeared in court, the other one's going to appear in court, the nuthead, is a member of the working staff close to the family. The murder of the Ocean Basket lady and her daughter, the domestic worker who worked there for 24 years, was arrested. Landy, I agree with you fully. Something is going to spark something in this country very shortly. The people we talk to, black and colored, we spoke to Indians today. We are in KwaZulu-Natal at the moment. People are gutful. People are tired of this. People are thinking, when is their mother next? Where is their wife next? And I'm going to say it again, I'm not finished with the churches. The churches in this time have failed us. Jesus Christ hasn't failed us. But the pastors and leaders of the faith have failed the nation terribly. It's so sad that there is not one church leader, and some of these church leaders have very big churches and make, a very lot of money, have not stood up in the name of Jesus Christ and said enough is enough. So these savage barbarians will get away with murder until the day comes that something happens. And let's pray that it is God's divine intervention. Because, hi Belinda, because as we stand at the moment, and if God decides not to intervene, you or me with our white skins are going to be next. If you've stolen 500 billion rand, plus the hundreds of thousands and hundreds of millions before that, how can you want more? What are you going to do with more? Stick it up your nose and then have a march for 3 months? Or prepare a march and then go and march? Because cocaine's expensive, Carl.
Cocaine is extremely expensive, sir.
Okay, thank you. I never used cocaine. Alcohol was my drug of choice. But quite right. It's time we put God back into our schools. That's what I would do if I was leading. But I've got no intention of leading. Country needs to repent and not be politically correct when it comes to our faith. You're either for God or you're against Him, straight. You can't say, well, I don't mind you this and that and do this and do that, and I'll just accept it because I want to be your friend. We can't do that, my friends. It's taken me a long time to realize that, because I was like that, you don't want to hassle people. You want everyone live and let live. But that's not what God says. I may say something now that you're going to think that I've been using the cocaine that Beverly supplies us from Mexico. Graham, have you lost your mind?
No what?
Okay. Sorry, Graham's just lying on the double bed. He thinks he's Don Johnson. Is that the day, and we can go back to the day, and I don't know when it was, but I can look it up, that this stupid socialist, communist, Marxist, unruly, barbarian government decided to cut ties with Israel. The writing was on the wall. Because it quite clearly says in the Word of God, bless Israel and you will be blessed. Curse Israel and you will be cursed. Our country is cursed. Where are the church leaders, Carl?
Yes, sir.
Where are the church leaders?
Amen, sir.
When the satanic church opened in Century City, why didn't it? You couldn't have closed it because of freedom of expression and freedom of association and freedom of murder, freedom of rape, freedom of looting, freedom of everything in this country. But where's our church leaders who would say, we are so against what is happening, and satanistic churches are being started openly. They used to be undercover, we know that, but openly, so people can go at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning and go to church and go worship Satan. Our church leaders are weak, I'm sorry. You can call me on judging them, but I'm talking from fact. In the apartheid struggle, the main people who led the apartheid struggle were people like Beyers Naudé, Alan Boesak, Desmond Tutu. They were in the front line of the marches against apartheid. And if I remember correctly, Bishop Tutu, I think, got the Nobel Peace Prize. So did F.W. de Klerk when he sold the country out. Because there was still 15 years, good 15 years to go to teach people how to govern. It's like taking my girlfriend and saying to her, please go and do a heart transplant. Even though she's a doctor, she knows nothing about heart transplants. Or knows a bit, but she wouldn't be able to perform it. It's like me asking me, Anthony, will you fly the next jet over to Mexico to get the cocaine that we can plan a march for 3 months without the use of back-a-buddy? The people we have spoken, I'm not going to say thousands of people because then I'm talking crap. But between the four of us, we've spoken to hundreds of people in the last while. You only have to go into the shop of the local supermarket, speak to the manager there who lives in the area and ask him, how's it, brew? What's going on in this area? Then you go outside and you get one of the burgers and you ask him, tell me, China, what's going on in this area? And if you don't get the same answer that you got from the supermarket manager, you go look for a third person. And you go ask him what is going on in this area. You quickly know what's going on in the area. Diana, yeah, no, it's morals, values, discipline has left us. And we're not angels, man. Quite right, Jackie. We're sitting ducks, South Africa. That's why it takes 3 months to arrange a march. That's why I should have known Beverly 3 months ago, 4 months ago. I'm totally against marches to a government that doesn't care a stuffing thing about our people. And especially when there's no memorandum handed over to them after the, let's just call it what it was, the Move 1 million disaster. The government know what's wrong. They know why people go and protest. I think the most powerful protest I've seen in the last year or two, or probably 3, is the white crosses that are put all over everywhere. Because that's a gentle reminder, is that there's someone dying, or someone died for that cross. Yes, I've been lucky enough or unlucky enough, but lucky enough, Belinda, to do interventions all around the world on drug addiction. That is my forte, and obviously my love of politics and law is where, and I get this passion from, and I believe it's a calling. It's not something that you want to go out and just find friends and speak to people on a Facebook and other social media. Not at all. Not at all. The SABC contacted me for an interview and I refused it. I don't want to speak to a government mouthpiece. I've got nothing to say to them at all. Hi, Renee, Nicole. Yeah, you can just send me a message, Belinda, and we can make a plan for that. Okay, Vasanta's awake now. It's good because one day you're going to sleep a long time, Vasanta.
Straight here.
All of us are going to speak a long time or sleep a long time. Yeah. So that is my point on that. And my initial point that I said about Julius Malema, he's a coward. An absolute spineless coward. That he won't meet 4 unarmed men that would walk into to his building unarmed. What's he hiding? Maybe Beverly can send him a shipment. For Santa, I saw the arrest of the woman involved in the what is it called now? Asphalt, somewhere in the Free State. And, there was a big tender that went out. And obviously, and then there's that arrest of the mayor. But these are puppets, man. We're the big boys. We're the big boys that were named in the state capture. The Ace Magashulus. Where is the arrest of President Ramaphosa? Because what's going to happen now, he's going to establish a commission into the COVID. I know this is coming, we can see it coming. Into the disappearance of the COVID billions. That will take 200 million and no one will be prosecuted. Why are the taxis still allowed out during curfew? Why can't we? Yes, asbestos. That's right, Vicenta. Thank you. Asbestos. Why as us ordinary South Africans not allowed to go out after 12 o'clock, but the taxis can run all the way from Cape Town to the Transkei and Joburg? It's ludicrous. The taxi mafia run the ANC. Big money in taxis. It's $1 billion industry. Why, when there's a march or because it's strike time coming up now, why is there a march and the strike and the police don't take action? Why didn't the police take action when that horse was slaughtered? But some people who are trying to earn a living, because some people who are trying to earn a living, like the restaurant owners and their waitresses and waiters, get stun grenades and water thrown at them, shot at them. Tommy van der Merwe writes, look at those big churches, millions here in Kempton Park. That big church they built in Tampa, Florida. Why America got so massive churches now in East London? Yeah. Children of God have forgotten what it's like to fast and pray. That's true, Dapper. But that's their own personal walk, and then there's also the Muslims. Now, the Muslims were very vocal during the apartheid era. Where are they? Because to me, if you don't stand for it, you stand against it. Huh? If you don't want to see a country change to here's the interesting statistics from Beverly, our drug merchant from Mexico. Cocaine expensive, Carl?
Cocaine is extremely expensive. So.
Okay, thank you, man. We are on 76,000 deaths in Mexico and never had a curfew. Mexico's quite a big place, you know what I mean? Where is Pagat? I think Pagat are still running, Lenny. but they're very quiet, very quiet. Francois, that's quite true. Ministers are stakeholders in the taxi industry. And the sale of drugs financed the liberation struggle in the 70s and 80s. We all know that. Drug money, big money. So yeah, tomorrow we'll be around KwaZulu-Natal. I won't tell you where we're going to be at this moment, but we'll be around KwaZulu-Natal. Oh, it's so true that, Jackie. We're here to, or churches are here to make money because they're preaching the financial prosperity gospel. They've become like motivational speakers instead of talking from the Word of God. They will tell you about airy, fairy things instead of tell you what is written in Revelations. Because you know what will happen? The people will run away and won't come to church the next Sunday, and they'll dip out on their money. So South Africans, thank you, Musli. I believe that. Ramatea Pagad is not really fighting the invasion of the Cape Flats now as we talk. Not at this stage. There's sporadic incidents, but not heavy. Pagad of old were heavy. They were heavy. Oh my God. Like our mothers can do what needs to be done to destroy your youth and loved ones with drugs. Yeah. You know, in all my life of being in the drug squad and being an alcoholic and used drugs, and it's never been so worse. Country's just been decimated. Planned by the ANC, people can say planned by the New World Order, planned by the ANC. Nothing is stopping these thieves from flying to Dubai. Let them fly. You know, remember for 2 years all we heard was Gupta, 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 Gupta? That some artist wanted to make a song about him. You know that? Yes, but he couldn't find enough cocaine to put up his nose, so he couldn't write. My friends, let me tell you now. It's not late, but it's early. How many politicians I know that put shit up their nose? I've been around these boys for a long, long time. I've partied with a lot of them. I wasn't drunk my whole life. How many premiers of this country? There's one premier of this country. He became, mayor of this country. He's now left and he's doing other things. Whose son is on the streets of Johannesburg from drugs. You're quite right, but there's no preaching of hell and brimstone. People don't realize that what they're in for in the revelation. And that's what the sad part is. And then I think South Africa is so thirsty just to clutch onto something. But will we stand and rise together? And I think God will make that plan. I know when I got the calling in my life in 1988, I continued to drink because I didn't want to take up the calling. I only took it up in 2005 when I stopped drinking and drugging. Yeah, I'm going to tell you, there's a span of doctors that put that shit up their noses, my brew. Peter Mahalik, dead Peter Mahalik, the advocate who was killed. I was at his in-laws the morning he got killed. His in-laws live on the Garden Route. I won't tell you where they live, but they live on the Garden Route. And I had happened to be passing the Garden Route, and I went there for a cup of coffee, and 10 minutes later we got the call that Peter Mahalik had been killed. Same thing. You live by the sword, you die by it. Yeah, Vasanta, absolutely. The Guptas took us for a ride with the help of good old Jacob. Thank you, Daniel, for the kind words. Thank you. But that's what it boiled down to. So Guptas I know in America, their banking accounts, their money has been seized in America. Well done, Donald. And God alone knows where the other money is. Yes, Jackie. He's waiting for us to ask him. We shall receive. We're the church leaders. Because these days I think it's easier to become a pastor than a postman. Hey, Carl?
That's right, sir.
I think Beverly's busy packing the next shipment to the elite of South Africa. That Dlamini woman who used to be leader of the ANC Women's League and Minister of Social Development, a drunk of note, Blade in Zamandi, Jackson in Tembu. I believe Jackson in Tembu has given up alcohol now for 5 months. Congratulations, Jackson. You still talk the biggest lot of nonsense, but congratulations. It's a good feat to stop, my brother. It's party time in the ANC. The money's flowing. People are starving. Houses aren't built, roads are bad, people are starving. Even all races where they've lost their jobs. Some men are working 10 days out of a month. How do you pay a bond, pay a car, put food on the table, put your children through school with that kind of money? That's my call, Tommy. I firmly believe that. Let's stop paying tax. They can't lock us all up. They'll probably lock a couple up to think that they're important. But they can lock us up because we know what prison looks like. Thank you, Veronica, that you pray for the divine intervention. Bless you, my sister, and the others you do. Like Dapper Mays, everyone. I can't take people's inventory on that. But we need to. God is our only option left. And after traveling through this country, and then we'll also go down. I want to go through the Transkei, and I want to go down to East London, PE, and then head back that way. And we'll see what Durban has to offer more tomorrow. The central Durban. I knew a friend, she died now of cancer, who was one of the personal secretaries of the Guptas. And those oaks made merrier. They had the keys to the fiscus. And the only one who actually, or not really, they had the keys to the, let's say, the outer fiscus. The only one who stood in their way is Pravin Gordhan. And the only one that now that Julius Malema wants to get out of government is Pravin Gordhan. I wonder why. I really wonder why. There's a thing going around that, and I'm not going to say if it's true or not because I don't know, that Thandi Modisa, the Speaker of Parliament, that AgriForum will accept 15 million rand to withdraw the charges against her. I don't know how true it is. I've just seen it, one or two reports on it. I don't know how true it is. I'm just putting it out there. Because if they are, and then Ramaphosa will talk more strongly about the farm murders. But he can't really because his hands are tied, because if he says the farm murders are priority, little short dick syndrome is going to turn around and say, but why aren't black people's lives priority? That's why Charlie made that comment the other day, that they cannot prioritize farm murders as farm murders. They are just murders. So that's how we look at the situation, and yeah, our army are, sadly to say, probably the worst trained, fattest. Now I'm not saying that, don't get me like I'm one of that dickhead who spoke about fat women, but you know, when you have to go into the trenches, you must actually get into the trenches, you know. And if the trenches aren't built big enough, how are you going to get in the trenches? If you must get into a tank and you can't fit through the tank hole in the top, what would you do? Stand aside. Surely you have to be fit, like some of our police. That's why the oaks get away, because the cops can run for 20 meters and they're stuffed. And let's not talk about their shooting. This needs to be pointed out to the South African public, and it needs to be pointed out to those in charge, because those in charge are not better than you and me. Those in charge are ministers being given titles that they think that makes them great. But they still go to bed, they go to the toilet, they do everything like a normal person does. The only difference is they get fat loads of money, they get bodyguards, and it makes them all kind of important because they got all the bling around them, driving in convoys of 15 vehicles. They are our servants, people. They are there to serve us. They're not there to dictate to us. We don't live in a dictatorship yet. And then we have small dick syndrome trying to like be the O, but he can't meet a 56-year-old white man. What a coward. Okay, Dirkie says they should stop breeding like bunnies. Okay, you'll have to speak to Mateo about the bunny side of that. Yeah, I can do all things through Christ Jesus that strengthens me. That's Philippians 4 verse 13. I think that's the one you're trying to put across there. Yeah, I think, Jackie, we are the Davids against the Goliaths. But more must stand up. I would love to watch and see people coming online and making a short video every day. I'd love it. It's going to get to the certain ears and it's going to get to the people. And when you get on a mission and you have a passion, God's strength carries you through. I wish I was 20 years younger. I wish I was 20 years younger. But anyway, I'm going to give it to Mateo, then I'll come back. No, Mateo, please, no. I'm going to give it to Carl for a couple of minutes. Don't worry about his eyes, Jackie, because Carl hasn't been doing cocaine. And we are taking orders to sponsor our trips. So anyone who needs good stuff, it's coming straight from Mexico via Carl's connection, through Graham's connection, and then through Angus' connection. So don't worry, it's good stuff. Shalom, Muslim. Shalom. I miss Israel. I love Israel. I love Israel. Okay, Carl, yes, you for a couple of minutes, then I'm going to come have a laugh for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to have a shower, and then I'm going to bed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's been a lovely day. Carl's nearly time, like this.
No, man. I was reading the...
Okay, tripping.
Never.
Thank you.
How's it, guys? How's it, everybody? Yeah, I'm wide awake now. And yes, cocaine is extremely expensive. Yeah, I think if I have anything to say, I'm just probably going to echo what Mr. Hall has already said, and that's that it really is a sad state of affairs. I think the most remarkable thing, or at least the thing that stood out the most for me today. How's it, Daniel? Yeah, Lenny, I am awake. I think I got these droopy eyes, so I think when I'm reading like this, maybe it looks like I'm sleepy. But yeah, I think the thing that stood out for me the most was, Mateo, cocaine is extremely expensive. I think you can blow about 1.5 million of it over 3 months while you plan a march, which doesn't really happen. I'm good, Martine. How you doing? I hope you're well. Yeah, I think the thing that stood out the most for me, really, and I think we've mentioned it like a couple times over now, but the thing that stood out for me the most is definitely the situation with the man that we saw sitting on the steps of the Constitutional Court, smoking a crack pipe. And I agree with what Mr. Hall had to say. I think right there is the picture painted. I think if anybody wanted to know, anybody from outside of our country wanted to know what is it like here right now, what are people living like, and if you could capture in a single picture an image of the state of this country right now, then for me the image would be this man sitting on the steps of the Constitutional Court smoking a crack pipe in broad daylight. Maybe you could add an image afterwards of the police driving past, slowing down to see what he's busy doing, and then just continuing to drive past. I think it's almost as though lawlessness is the order of the day. It's almost as though people just, I agree, Daniel. It is a scary perspective. The building itself, if you've had the pleasure of being there, it's a beautiful building. There's some fantastic artworks. You've got this flame there that's constantly burning. I think it's called the Freedom Flame. And in front of it, you've got this massive cement block which has the Constitution written on it. And I found myself trying to think back to 1990, 1994, and I wonder, obviously I was a child back then. Still am, Mr. Hall says. I think he's right in many regards. And I think that what was going through my mind is how many men and women were hopeful at that point. How many men and women were involved in that struggle? When my folks told me stories, they told me stories of how they were pro the liberation of the black people. They were very against a segregated or separated nation. My old man was actually at one stage quite a successful boxer, but he was a boxer when there were still certain restrictions, and so he wasn't allowed to compete professionally, even although he competed wherever he could. And as a young man, I was going into Umtanzani, various locations with him while he was still promoting fights. And he was often one of the only white men that was involved in fights. And I think, what was it like for those people that put their life on the lines back then? You can tell me incredible stories of police looking for them, raiding parties, bars that they were at with friends, because of them apparently being involved in various forms of terrorism, purely because of their association towards certain groups of black people. And I think, what was it like for them? It must have been an incredibly hopeful moment. I think 26 years ago, there must have been an entire group of people that stopped, took a step backwards and thought, perhaps now we have a chance, and perhaps now we have a future. Perhaps now things will change for our children. And then I look at that old man and I think, was he one of those children? Or was he a young man aspiring to what sort of future he might have or opportunities might be open to him? And now he's standing on the steps of the very same court that was erected to represent what was changed in this country, or what was offered to us in this country. And instead, what he's busy doing is he is sitting on the very same steps, homeless. I mean, that was obvious to see, dirty and addicted, getting high on some crack. Politely speaking, please get your own page. We are trying to concentrate. Trying to Mateo. I've lost track of some of the comments. Country could be a wonderful place. I think I couldn't agree with you more, Mateo. I've often said to people, if you look at South Africa in particular, over and above all other African nations, we probably have the most colorful demographic of them all. We have 11 national languages. We have more varieties of culture and history than I think any other nation in the whole of Africa. We could be a truly beautiful country. I think perhaps something that Mr. Hall would also, I think, maybe perhaps agree with is the reality that if you have people, you have the most valuable asset that you could possibly have. You can have all the money in the world, you can have all the tools in the world, but if you don't have people to work those tools, or people that you can invest that money in, then what do you really have? Whether it be a business or an organization or a civil rights movement, you have nothing. You need the people in order to affect change. And what kind of diversity could we bring to the political world, or to the economic world, or to the capitalistic way that the first world runs, when we have so much diversity within the various cultures that we have in this country, and yet all of it is underutilized? There's a man whose life has been absolutely thrown away, sitting on the steps of that same building, getting high. I think it's absolutely disgusting, and again, I think that it's a single picture that for me captures exactly what the reality is on the ground in this country right now. But having said that, I don't think that it's hopeless. I think that the reality is, as Mr. Hall would clearly state, there's a select few individuals who are holding on to power. when the kitchen gets too hot and the pressure's on, and those individuals just can't get away with their theft anymore, then there's a little bit of movement, but all that happens is that power is rejuggled and another man takes place and he just continues down the same path. And I think I believe in what we're busy doing here, because I believe that if enough of us can get together with a collective voice that is speaking the same words or wanting the same change, if we can unify and separate ourselves from our differences and choose to rather look at our common goal, which is as cliche as what it sounds, the reality is a better South Africa for all of us, then we can affect change. The beauty of still being in some level of a democracy is that as a collective, we can overpower. There is no power in this country greater than the collective, but the collective has been kept blindfolded and separated and divided. And I think that's the reason why an ANC has been able to get away with what they get away with for the last 26 years. If more people were prepared to stand up and rally together around the 500 million that's gone missing, if more people were prepared to combine their voices and make a noise over it, then at some point we could apply enough pressure that something was forced. Even if you look, at least in my opinion, even if you look at things like Jacob Zuma must fall, I think that sure there was a political will to have him removed, but I think at the same time that political will was motivated by the fact that enough people had gotten gutful and enough people were prepared to stand up and say enough is enough. And I think that that's just maybe the reality of the situation. Perhaps we all relaxed on our laurels when he was removed and thought things would be better now, and we didn't realize how deep the need for change or the corruption truly was. And I think that once again, we have to mobilize. I think that's what makes me fall in love with this movement that Mr. Hall has started. All South African lives matter. I think that it's more important now than ever. Every single one of us is supposed to count. And when every single one of us believes that we do count and that our opinions are important and that our voice should be heard, and we're prepared to unify and speak out against these atrocities together, then perhaps we can have an opportunity to truly change things. And yeah, I think I will. The last piece that I want to have to say about it is just that, again, this is why I take my hats off to Mr. Hall and what he's trying to do. I think a lot of us are quiet because we think that the task is insurmountable and that we're never going to get it right. But in my eyes, there's one man that's prepared to stand there and say, but change is possible. It's just going to require that we rally together, that we're prepared to come in our numbers and grow this group or this movement to the point where we have allowed enough voice and enough momentum that we can perhaps affect real change in this country. And I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of. I think the man is incredibly brave to be prepared to champion that. There's a lot of people saying a lot of different. It's not just the might of an ANC or an EFF that I think Mr. Hall is up against, but it is the likes of a PETSA and a Move 1 Million. It is even those private groups that start up, promise all the right things, but themselves are only equally as corrupt or looking for how they can get their foot in the door in order to pillage this country for themselves. And then, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, but for 3 months, get it absolutely right and walk away with 1.5 million that, as far as we're concerned, only went up a man's nose. And there's nothing to show for it. And sometimes I go past that group on Facebook and I see 600,000 members, and all I see is 600,000 people that were completely used, abused, and left in the lurch without any real delivery on any promises that were made. All that happened is that one man got exceptionally high off of coke, which is extremely expensive, for 3 months at the value of 1.5 million. And an organization which I think does a lot of right, like Backer Buddy, was the vessel that he used to manipulate his own will. Absolutely disgusting. So yeah, I think just to all of you, I want to say thank you for all of your support. Thank you for continuing to support what Mr. Hall and ourselves are trying to achieve. And I can't stress it enough. Please continue to like and share as much as the content that we're putting out there, because it's the only way that it's going to grow. We are incredibly active on the ground, but there is no tool. Mr. Hall will say it, and he has said it many times, and he says it accurately. There is no tool that is as powerful or as far-reaching as social media. And if we can continue to grow the group and continue to grow this platform, then perhaps we can reach a point where enough of us can stand together and focus our efforts on particular areas where we as a collective feel change is most necessary, And then as a collective, the thing is, in Mr. Hall, you don't have a man that's going to take advantage of your 1.5 million through BackaBuddy and stick it up his nose. You have a man that's prepared to do this without any financial backing from anybody else. A man that isn't asking for any donations. He's doing this out of his own pocket. Thank you to those of you that have contributed. And I think it's beautiful of those of you that have contributed, because you've chosen to do it out of your own free will, and nobody's had to motivate you to do that. And again, in my personal opinion, I don't think Mr. Hall needs it, but of course it is greatly appreciated because the financial strain is immense. However, he's a man that's prepared to do it on his own. From my dealings with Mr. Hall, I can tell you, and I can vouch for this, it's not about your donations, it's about your support. If we have enough of you together, then the money is not the issue. Mr. Hall is and has been prepared to do this financially on his own steam and by his own financial means. And I don't think he'll ever give up. But we do need the support, and we need the support to continue to grow. Because money can only get you so far. Money can maybe get us around, get us meeting the right people. Money can maybe help us to set up the right events or whatever it is we eventually decide that we need to do as a collective. But we need the collective in order for that to happen. And the collective requires perhaps all of us doing our own part in the smallest and the simplest way, which is just that we like and share the content as often as possible. I do think that myself and Mr. Hall's discussions, we want to try to push as much of the stuff that we're putting out there onto the All South African Lives Matter group. In order to do that, I'm personally making requests and saying, please, if you guys get a chance, if you're not already on the group, you just have to search groups on Facebook, All South African Lives Matter, and ask to join. And of course, we're never going to deny any of you that opportunity. And when you see the content, or you see the All South African Lives Matter group making posts, it's a simple click of a like and a share. I know a lot of you do that already, and for that, I think we are incredibly grateful. But if we can just continue to do that, at some point the momentum will reach a pace at which it will just start to grow consistently on its own without us needing to continuously punt it. And I think that's where we're busy going. And I see, Mateo, I see your comment. I think we must get 500 people together and register a party. I agree with the sentiments of many of you. Mr. Hall for president, but Mr. Hall is quite adamant on the fact that he doesn't want to necessarily go into politics again. I think he said it accurately. All South African Lives Matter is a civil rights movement, and we don't need to be in politics. We don't need a party if we have enough people together to effect change. If another individual had not simply taken everybody's money and stuck it up his nose, because cocaine is extremely expensive, roughly 1.5 million's worth over 3 months, sponsored by BackaBuddy. If he hadn't chosen to do that, the man had the clout, or at least enough people following him, that he could have done a lot more. He was just too concerned with his own financial gain and his own back pocket than the needs of the wants of that group of individuals he had following him. And the proof is in the pudding. Like Mr. Hall says, God does not sleep. It didn't take very long for things to start unraveling on their own. Mr. Hall, I think, accurately was the first person to speak out. He said all the right things. I think he got a lot of people thinking, even although they slammed him, and very few people were prepared to perhaps give him the credit at the time. But I think what we've seen happen now is that everything he had to say was absolutely accurate. And as a result, they have slowly torn themselves apart without the need of any direct intervention, other than for somebody who was brave enough and courageous enough to stand up and say, no, guys, I don't think we should be following this movement. It's as equally bad for all of us as what our current ANC administration is. And I take my hats off to the man for that. But yes, point being, if we continue to grow this platform and we can try to gather as many numbers together as possible, then there is no need, Mateo, necessarily to have to formulate a party. One of the things about a democracy is supposed to be that those parties that have a certain amount of power are, as Mr. Hall said accurately when he started this, public servant. That is the role of a politician. They are there to serve the public. And if we can rally the public together in order to force those servants into a position where they have to do the service they've committed to do, then there's no need for us to have a political party. We can simply have a group, a civil rights movement big enough that where we see areas that we believe need change, we can, as a collective, with our collective resources and our collective contacts, focus in on an area, attack that area until we force change. And that way, perhaps we're doing even more for our democracy than formulating a party. That way, we can perhaps be in a position where we take the parties that are already in place and subject them to enough pressure that they start doing the job we're voting for them to do or paying for them to do with our tax dollars. Yeah, I hope that maybe just expresses mine, and I think maybe Mr. Hall's opinion as well on the matter. Matteo. Good algorithm. Likes create good algorithm. I'm not sure what you're saying there, Dapper, but I agree. You know, I think the thing is every like and every share bumps an article or video or post up to more relevant or the top of anybody's in particular feed. And the more that that's busy happening, the greater the potential is for the group to continue to grow. And I love this gathering. I think it's so awesome that there's so many of you that come and join to hear Mr. Hall speak, and then you all interact. I love the way that he interacts with all of you. I think that there's maybe some people that say, how's it? We all know who I'm busy talking about, but doesn't really engage necessarily with the community that's busy growing. And I think that that's part of, you know, Mr. Hall's humility, that means he enjoys that aspect of what we're busy doing. And it would be awesome for this community to continue to grow. And again, once the collective is big enough, we can start to focus some of our attention in on particular areas. And not to say that Mr. Hall isn't attempting to do that as is. Of course he is. But the reality is that we still need a lot more movement from the group, and we still need a lot more numbers backing us. And I think all of us would agree. We have a leader in Mr. Hall who I think has the potential to do exactly that for all of us. I think it's just about the exposure. If enough people hear, you know, in my opinion, whenever anybody hears what he has to say, you know, I remember a comment of a woman once busy saying, you know, when she first started watching his stuff, she thought he was a little bit arrogant, and then she heard what he had to say about Julius Malema, and suddenly she said, I couldn't agree with you more. Now she follows him avidly, and I think that that's exactly the point. If we can push the numbers big enough, that's exactly what's going to happen. The man says exactly what all of us are thinking and feeling. He says it like it is, without any buttering it up or trying to be too politically correct. And I think that that's what all of us are longing for, you know, in this country. I think we're tired of the nonsense. So Twitter and YouTube, which are really every picture and video share across Facebook and our groups, Twitter and YouTube, which are really very active. For any info, please message me. And thank you for your continued support. All South African Lives Matter group. Thank you, Lee. Thank you for posting that. I think that Lee's hitting the nail on the head. All of you are contributing. I think that we do appreciate, the likes and the comments. But I don't think I'm ever going to stop trying to reiterate. Please don't stop doing it. As long as we continue to do it, the better the chances are that we continue to grow this group. It is growing. It is growing steadily. But I think that it's always going to be my job to try to say, let's not stop, guys. For the greater good of all of us involved, let's not stop. There we go. I think Daniel agrees. As it is now, this movement is getting a lot of attention from all the right people, but definitely with more numbers, we can do more than what these political parties do without venturing into that political game. Amen, Daniel. I couldn't agree with you more. I think that that's exactly what I'm trying to say, and I think that I think that a lot of us would all having the same thoughts or thinking along the same train of thought. So I think it was a hectic day. It was a busy day. I've said it before, with Mr. Hall, we never stop, but I think it's work that's rewarding. And loving your guys' support of Mr. Hall, and loving the work that we're busy doing. And of course, as Mr. Hall would say, he will never surrender. And so long as he will never surrender, we will always have his back, and we will always be pushing towards the same goal with him in any way that we possibly can. So I think the gents are all busy getting ready to crash for the night. And of course, tomorrow morning is going to be up early and at it early. We will, of course, definitely speak with you guys first thing in the morning again, and continue on this journey together. So thank you for your continued support, guys. Love you guys very much. Thank you for joining us again. I think I'm gonna turn in myself. So I'm going to say goodnight. I'm going to say love you guys madly, and until we meet again, God bless, keep safe, and know that you guys are always in our thoughts. Love you guys. Good night.